What you see here is a cover for my next short story, which is going to be called Matthew McConaughey, Terror at the Oscars, the Cowbell Husband. You're going to get some behind-the-scenes stuff that happened at the Oscars that, of course, Camila Alves and the Jesuits don't want you to know about, and which you'll never hear about on the Jesuit-dominated internet and news. Basically, here's the cover. It says, this is what it says: when Matthew McConaughey fell in love with Gail while filming for the 2005 Steven Spielberg movie Silver Skies, based on Gail's book, Jesuits assigned to him in 2006 a wife named Camila Alves. This story reveals why Matthew was terrified when he learned he'd have to attend Oscar ceremonies for his performance in the Dallas Buyers Club, and what really happened to him at the Oscars with Camila by his side. And then it's about the author section. I just put the Gabriel Chana Fox News Channel reports on Gail and her men every day. When Jesuit genetic profiling teams discovered Gail's genetic profile of King David and Catherine the Great in 1957, they created the Cold War as a distraction. It worked until the famous Brent Spiner fell in love with Gail in the 1990s. Despite Jesuit meddling, Gail has evolved into the Jesuit order's greatest threat. Therefore, any man, especially if famous, cannot escape their machinations. That is, if he commits the unpardonable sin of falling in love with Catherine the Great and King David. I'm getting really good at doing portraits and artwork, and this is my artwork so I create my own covers and use my own art design. And I do a portrait here in my portraits, I try to capture the real soul of the person. And a lot of times when you see a photograph, the person is posing for the shot and they're not really themselves, like they're putting a big fake smile on their face. What I do is I do research on the person, and then based on my research, I try to draw a portrait that captures the genuine and authentic soul that this person has. So sometimes it's a part of them that they don't divulge to the public. And so in this drawing of Matthew McConaughey, I captured a side to him, a very deep side, a sensitive side. He's very manly, but he's also deep and sensitive. And it's very, very devoted to his lovers. And I remember when I read the 2005 People magazine article about him when he was voted sexiest man alive, which, by the way, doesn't really impress me. I don't care about that stuff. I just happened to notice him because it's a long story. I'll probably be going into it in this story that I'll be writing about him. But he was like a fill-in when Vladimir Putin had a near-fatal heart attack. Anyways, it's just not fair to Matthew what the Jesuits have done to him, and I'm going to try to help him out. Camila Alves is a very evil woman. She's just like Laurie McBride. A killer, a rapist. The Jesuits are attacking my throat. Goodness. I think I'm going to have to do this over. Ugh. Oh boy, I'm going to leave that in there just to show you how powerful these Jesuits are. I mean, they've got extraordinary technology. They can induce cough spasms. Anyways, I just wanted to show you the artwork. This is going to be the cover for my next short story, and I'll be working on that next. And the short story that I wrote about Vladimir Putin discovering Barack Obama's head in a jar, I decided to publish that at Amazon as a paperback because one of my followers requested that. And I wasn't originally planning on doing that, but if you do decide to buy it at Amazon, you'll be getting all of my artwork. So I'm actually starting to sell some of my artwork, and you'll also get the short story in there. But a lot of that. It's a little 24-page book, but it's going to have my artwork. So I think my portraits are getting rather good here. And like I said, I've developed an ability to capture the soul of the person, and I think I've really captured the real Camila Alves in this portrait I drew of her, and the real Matthew McConaughey. And when you look at the two of them together, they don't look at all compatible. And Matthew, he's terrified of Camilla. Anyways, my story will be covering it. This is not going to be in my book. That's the reason I'm going to write it as a short story. It's going to Matthew is real sensitive about Camilla. She's devastated him, so he hasn't opened up to me as much as Brent Spiner has about Laurie McBride. But I will say this much. You see that cowbell she's holding? She's basically got Matthew trained kind of like Pavlov's dog, you know, where she can just ring the bell and get him to do whatever she wants. And I will be going into that in my short story, but he hasn't opened up to me as much as Brent Spiner has about Laurie McBride. So Matthew, I thought I'd deal with him separately in a short story, because when I write the sequel to The Forbidden Abyss Part 1, I don't think I'm going to be going really deep into Matthew. And because he is like number 3 on the marriage list, he's pretty high up there. So I feel like I need to deal with him somewhere in my writing. So I decided to deal with him in this short story. And and then in the book, I'll deal with him more, like I'll just sort of like brush over him, but I'm not going to be going as deep as I am in the short story. So I'm not sure how long this short story is going to be. It might be a little bit longer than the one I wrote about Vladimir Putin, because I do have a little bit of history I need to establish, but it will be a short story. It's not going to be a book. And maybe after this, Jesus is letting me write these short stories to expand my writing skills. And he wants me to grow a little bit as a writer before I go back into the sequel to The Forbidden Abyss Part 2. But this will not be in the sequel to The Forbidden Abyss Part 2. It's very recent. And my sequel is probably going to be covering from like September 2012 to maybe early or late 2013. So it's not going to be covering what happened at the Oscars. Terrence Jenkins just told me what happened to Matthew at the Oscars, and I was thinking, wow, I really ought to make a video about that. And then I thought about that. You know what, Gail? You ought to make a story about this. This is just a story that the world needs to know about. It's very difficult for Matthew to talk about this, but the world needs to know what the Jesuits are doing to my men. They really need to know that. There are so many lies out there. And the Jesuits are a great propaganda machine, and they've got a lot of people brainwashed with their lies. And it's my job to let the truth get out there, because the truth will set us free.